essentially how money comes into existence, which creates this kind of infinite growth and scarcity in the money supply, and obviously, yeah, control from powers up above. I mean, those are the three basic main scripts, but I mean, we can come to this a little later. But I don't know about you, but I think something very different now than what I did then when I came into contact with it. So, just to sort of elaborate slightly, I mean, I'd watched that. I found it, hugely compelling at the time of watching it, with pretty much doing no fact checking on the film itself at all at the time. I suppose I just found it. A lot of people, I think, found it quite. It's very well made. It's a very punchy documentary. It's very well pieced together. And if I suppose your lot with the world and your dissatisfaction with the world, and maybe your own life to a certain degree, is in a certain place, and you want there to be some agency to why the world is the way it is, then it provides you with a lot of solace.
Yeah,
A film
right.
like that.
That's right. That's what brought people together, I guess. There was an addendum to that movie, literally called Addendum, Zeitgeist Addendum, that addressed a number of points, and it was a better produced quality film. Clearly, he put more work into it, and he focused more on the banking stuff. And I guess that's when I became more activist orientated. I guess I wanted to communicate with people who I thought were much more of a like mind, people who were certainly much more eloquent in the way that they spoke. Because there's various groups, whether it be socialist platforms. So I live in Nottingham. I'm not sure whereabouts do you live. Okay,
London-ish.
so there's lots of
Watford.
different groups, isn't there, around that would come together to talk about generally that the government's really bad, down with the elites or down with whatever. And that narrative feels quite powerful to lay blame at somebody for the state of society, and that's almost romantic that we can do something about it, and that draws you in.
Yes. I think also we're seeing that powerfully at the moment with the coronavirus outbreak.
Yes,
People want to subscribe agency to everything from nature to the powers that be to everything else. I mean, let's not go completely down naivety street, because we obviously groups of powerful people have got together to work out how to preserve their interests. That's no secret, but
absolutely.
to want to subscribe some form of agency to everything in the universe is not something I try not to do it. Basically,
No,
I sort of have a different procedure of epistemology in terms of how I think about the world, which actually was brought on by Zeitgeist Addendum and the following film, which were both about essentially a resource-based economy. So Zeitgeist Addendum birthed the movement we both got involved with, which was the Zeitgeist movement. Literally, Zeitgeist means a cultural climate of an era, and movement means change. So the tagline of the movement was that it was to support the work of an organization called the Venus Project, which called for a redesign of the global socio-economic system towards a resource-based economy, which would use resources and the intelligent management of them via the scientific method to meet the needs of the human population as their benchmark, rather than monetary exchange or politics. That was the tagline. That's the tagline of the movement. We can come on to what it was in reality, what it turned into, and what we think about it now as we go on. But that seems to me to be a reasonable summary of how our paths came to cross, I
it
suppose.
did. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. That is exactly what brought us to paths to cross. There was a lot of people who were interested in finding out more, and I guess a lot of people from lots of different levels of thought went into that. So I saw there was a pre-Discord. It was a TeamSpeak meeting. There was a lot of people who would use that as their primary form of communication. There was the website, and I guess is it pre-Facebook? I guess that people were communicating on that platform. I think it's
Maybe no. No, I think Facebook. I don't know. I don't know. It blurs.
yeah, it does. So yeah, the idea is that people came together to try to make a difference, and then when people felt really passionate about trying to make that, then changes happen.
Well, it's hardly surprising considering the crash that happened in 2008.
That's right, yeah. When the banking crash happened and the banks were bailed out to the tune of public money all across the world. And it's interesting what happened to their money afterwards. Because they appear to have ran to the bank with their own money and, perhaps caused the same thing again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's is a difficult one because it's sort of like where we're at now with coronavirus is when you've built your castle on sand, when things start to go wrong, you kind of don't have time to build a new castle.
No.
You've got to just carry on with the one that exists, even though its functionality is kind of what got you in the mess you got to in the first place. So with the banking crisis at the time, my disposition was, well, it cost $23 trillion of global public debt to bail out the banks, but it would cost about the same figure to build a worldwide renewable energy infrastructure, which, by the way, wasn't actually a bona fide statement. I've since learned, but once again, we'll come on to like how our views of what is true and what isn't have changed over the years. But nevertheless, even so, my disposition since then is understanding the way money works and the system we built. If we said, "No, I'm not going to bail you out," it wouldn't have been pretty.
No,
I'm not.
I'm stuff fall apart really.
I don't get me wrong. I think a lot more bankers should have gone to prison. I'm perfectly happy to entertain that idea. But the idea that you can't bail bankers out and people with all their savings in the banking system goes down the toilet, but don't worry because everybody's going to wipe out world debt and sing Kumbaya and walk off into the sunset is hopelessly naive.
Hey, you ever watched that a series on Amazon Prime, Mr. Robot? You ever watched that?
Yes.
That was a really good series. Remy Malek, is it? And,
yes, it was very good. It got a little repetitive by about the 6th or 7th episode, but generally speaking, some of the speeches in it and the general disposition was good. Obviously, it was very good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the way the climax of that series, in fact, was that they reset the World Bank clock, didn't they? They paid off all the debt in the world. And,
that was it. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I have some sympathies for a debt jubilee, and of course, I believe it's mandated in the Bible. Interestingly, there's actually a debt jubilee mandated in there. So those of a religious persuasion could argue for that, I suppose. But what's the I wouldn't like to entertain what the practicalities of it would really be. I mean, just fancifully entertaining it. I mean, it's not like Saudi Arabia are going to let America off their oil bill anytime soon. So I think the whole notion, that's why I called it hopelessly naive. There's money owed on this planet, and money lent on this planet, and I don't think the lenders are particularly enamored with the fact of letting people off billions to the tune of billions and billions of dollars.
No.
So, but I mean, what would be the practicality? It's a nice thought exercise. You sort of go, well, I suppose the game goes back to zero, because largely speaking, obviously, money is a tool that we use as a medium of exchange that we find some sort of value in, that we place value in. But the value, it was a good point made by the movement. The value really is fictional.
Out of the Zeitgeist movement, perhaps should be the next part. So actually, no, before we do that, so you and we met physically in first person at the Conway Hall 2011-2012. And it was the Z-Day conference. It was I thought it was well attended, actually. I met some interesting people there that day. I met really good conversations. I met the lead singer from Enter Shikari. I think he gave a really good talk about money and music and influence, and I actually thought it was a really well delivered. And
I see. I know the one you were at now, because there was obviously a few in London. I for a minute there I thought you were talking about the global event. which was in 2011, which saw about 2.5, 3. I think it was thousands of people. It was literally thousands. It was Peter Joseph was there. Jacques and Roxanne from the Venus Project were supposed to be there. It was a big event. It's at that point where you felt like things were snowballing up, and then the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement parted ways for various reasons of disagreement about how to progress forward. But then the event you're talking about, yes, Rao Reynolds did a speech about the power of music to convey social change, and it was very good. Yeah.